This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show, 910 KINA, and we're here this Saturday morning with what I'm calling sort of an entertainment series. We have with us sitting here in the studio a movie producer, and I want you to stay tuned because after we have this guest, we're going to be talking to a stand-up comic, so we should have a lot of fun today. And my guest today here is Natalie Braxton. Welcome, Natalie.
Hi, Joan. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, you know, you're kind of a celebrity in your own right when you talk about making movies in Salina.
Yeah, I guess. I'm not a celebrity, but, you know, I'm definitely working on a film here, so it's cool.
Well, tell us some more about that.
Well, what happened was, in 2009, I came across a book called So Much More. My aunt gave it to me. Some of you out there might know her, Dr. Davis. And the book was written by Dr. Joan. They're both radiologists here in town. The book was about a young autistic child whose mother has just passed away from breast cancer. The father doesn't cope well with it, and so he institutionalizes the child. And in his adulthood, when he's in his early 20s, he meets a nursing student, and basically together they discover that he's got this amazing music talent. So it's really about that journey. So it's it's a really sweet story.
And I'm glad you kind of, you know, paraphrase that for me because it's been a little while since I read the book myself. But yeah, it's a sweet little story about, you know, how they discover he has the talent. Was it, if I remember, playing the piano?
Exactly.
And everyone was really astounded. And didn't that come out when he was already institutionalized?
Yeah, it does. It comes out when he's institutionalized and when the nurse starts to work with him. And she actually is a piano player herself, and she's sort of just doing it to kind of soothe him and help him. And then it turns out he can do it too, and he's really got this almost savant-like talent going on. So it's a sweet story, but it's all in the execution when it comes to making the film. Because you can have great stories on the pages, but it's all about how it kind of changes over when you get to the screen, like the adaptation. And that's the challenging part, because this is my first adaptation. And, you know, with it, it's like there's a lot to learn. You can have great talent, you can have great director, you can have great producers, but it really is about how you're going to tell that story, which is going to make it work for the audience.
Well, and of course, you know, you and I have met through doing some movie projects and talking about this type of work that we do with movies and producing movies.
Absolutely.
And I've always felt that it starts with a story.
That's it.
It starts with a story, which is a screenplay. So are you one of the screenwriters that did the adaptation from the novel?
I started out working on the adaptation myself with Dwayne, and then as we got other talent involved, we kind of realized, you know, it's just another one of those steps. You're kind of on a journey. I'm not, you know, for me, rewriting is, you know, it's a specialty. It takes a certain talent. And although it's something I can do, there was someone who was out there who actually really had a knack for it and knew how to really pull the great, you know, all the good juice out of the book, you know, so that it really stays true to the book while very much being a contemporary, you know, it's going to make a great independent feature-length film. You know?
Now, and who is this person and where are they from? Because you've traveled and lived in many, many places.
Absolutely.
So
this time, it's the director that we're working with, William Cusick is his name. So far, so good. He's on board. The scriptwriter is a guy named Carl, and Carl is based in LA at the moment, and just really great, really talented guy, really fast worker, very intuitive, and you know, it's like these are names, but there's a lot of people out there working on these things, but he's good. I feel like we handpicked him and William brought him to us, and it's great. And I have a producer who I work with up in Kansas City named Alden Miller, and he's fantastic. So it's like we have a good team. It's like when you work on these things and you're really trying to do something, you kind of need people who are just right in that right place. And this is sort of a breakout film. It's like we don't think, oh, we're making a major studio production for millions of dollars, nor are we making just something that we're just sort of like doing out of our garage for $5. So it's like when you have an independent feature film, it's like you usually have an independent feature film budget with it. And the best part is that by doing it in Salina, it keeps our budget way down. And it also allows us to actually be a little bit more involved with the community in terms of who's kind of backing this piece and who wants to be involved with it. It really has the opportunity to give back. And it's such a wonderful story. I've given out so many books and had so many good responses. It's kind of exciting. I like that. You know, you don't know what's going to happen, but you know, but for me, I really feel like it's an important story to tell.
And to tell because, I've talked to you a little bit, you know, before we came into this interview about how this is going to impact the community, involve this community of Salina. So you're actually planning, and are you at still the phase where you're still raising monies?
Absolutely.
Which is always, people don't think about that part of movie making. That can be protracted.
Naturally happen. And Joan, you yourself are this amazing talent. like, it's interesting because me and Joan met, I think about, like, we've met a long time ago, like,
Yeah,
at
we
least
did.
5 or 6 years.
We really
and-
connected.
Yeah, and Joan is such a talent because she's really got this, like, writing knack, and she also has, like, a vision for directing, so, you know, along the way, Joan's kind of been there as I've, like, been journeying in my filmmaking career, and I've seen her kind of develop in all these different creative ways.
My career. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So we've kind of sometimes like traded off, kind of like, oh, what are you doing? What's going on? How are you doing this? Are you okay? Like,
Yeah, when you were in New York, I'd be calling you and
Yeah,
say, "What are you doing right now?
totally.
Tell me something
Totally,
exciting." And you'd be
exactly.
doing the same. It was always
Yes,
fun.
yeah.
You were always collaborating with some unique and new things.
exactly. Yeah.
And because,
Me too.
you know, to me, the passion for it all is just being creative.
Mhm.
And we don't know how the process is going to actually
That's
officially
it.
evolve, but I love that part of it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because again, you know, for people here in this community who don't know a lot about it, you know, look at the process from the, you know, Dr. DeTurk writing the novel
That's
to
right.
then attempting the screenplay or starting the
Mhm.
screenplay, then
Mhm.
bringing in a professional writer.
That's right.
And now that you have the solid screenplay, which
Yeah.
we both know can be rewritten multiple
Exactly.
times well
It's
before it goes to film or during
35,
filming.
35 different drafts in, and we probably will have another 35
Exactly,
more.
and that's just the way the writing goes.
That's
But at
it.
some point you say, this is it.
Yes.
You put it out there to investors and hope to bring in a few dollars.
Absolutely.
And do you have any targeted date for when you think you might be able to wrap up some of the budget and get that in place so you can start looking at filming? Or
We are hoping to be able to start filming, I think, by next summer. You know, that's what we would hope. You know, that's
Right.
where we sort of have our target. I mean, it's interesting because, you know, to get the talent together and to pull in the right people, the right director, we've been quite, you know, blessed because we've already had such a good response in that respect.
Mhm.
However, you know,
and
talent.
you know what brought that
Yeah.
in is a good screenplay.
That's right, a good storyline, a good
Absolutely,
concept.
those
and it
directors
starts
will
with
not
that.
touch it unless
That's
they like
it.
the story
This
and
is
really
it.
believe in
This
it,
is-
because
this
it's
is
such
true.
a huge project you have. And the other thing, people, because I know you and I even had a meeting
Yeah.
with Dr.
Mhm.
DeTurk together
Mhm.
talking about producing this movie, which you've
That's
lovely moved forward with it, and I'm
Yeah.
obviously doing radio.
That's right. No, but you
This
know.
is my new project.
Yeah.
Because people don't realize the years of investment it takes.
Mhm.
I know I've even heard some big name directors and producers say you have to invest 2 years of
That's
your
it.
life
That really is.
into it, and so you're well into that.
Mhm.
But even, you know, thinking of filming next summer, which I think is very realistic time
Mhm.
frame. You don't just film the film and it's over. Then you have
It's not over until it's
post-production,
over.
and you have distribution, which the
Mhm.
film I did, Au Pair, Kansas, we finished our filming December of '08, and we just now are tying up our
And
international
congratulations
distribution
on
with Mar
that.
Vista. Yeah, that's huge.
It's huge. It's huge. People don't
It
even
is.
realize how huge
Mhm.
it is. because
Everybody
it's
just
like-
thinks, where's the DVD?
Exactly, and it's like, you know, the film
It's a
is,
process.
and that's another thing. It's like the film industry's changed. I think if you know, there's kind of, I think, a mentality. I think if you just watch films that, oh, it gets made and then you get this like distribution deal, it's very kind of like a crude understanding of it. And I wouldn't expect people to just have this like, you know, whole understanding of the process. But the film industry has changed enough that, you know, just the way things are done, the way people, you know, consume film. You know,
Mhm,
everything has
mhm.
changed in
Oh,
such a
gosh,
way.
yeah.
So many niche markets.
Distribution is so different. You know,
Absolutely.
Netflix, and now we're going
Yeah.
beyond Netflix. You know, there's just
Yeah.
downloading movies all the time.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So everything, the whole model for it then
Mhm.
changes because you go from people buying a DVD that's $15, you know, down to like downloading things for $2 and $3. It has to change then, you know, like how you
Exactly.
go about making films and what kind of films you make and the communities you make them for and, you know, all of it, everything, and how you spend your money. You know, it's like it's sometimes more profitable. Some people might say, why aren't you out in LA making this film? Well, it just makes sense to make it in a awesome community where they're going to be open to it and there's space to do it and the story fits with the setting. It's like, why would I go to LA and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars when I can do it here for a fraction?
Well, and then besides the economics of it all, one thing that I really embraced and liked was, well, I should say, the community embraced when we did the
Mhm.
film here, was it was novel. We had
Mhm.
hundreds of people come out for our
Mhm.
casting calls for extras. We had community support. We had people bringing donuts. You know, I
Mhm.
mean, we just had so many things that the community
That's
did.
awesome. It's great.
But as a local here in this community, and I know this has happened with films even made here in Kansas, is sometimes movie makers from other places would come in. You and I are local people,
Mhm.
but other people would come in and they would literally leave a lot of unpaid bills. And I made a promise to the city of Lindsborg and the city of Salina that would not happen. So
That's great.
if anything, we infused a lot of dollars into that small community at that time.
Yeah.
Because I know where you're sitting, and I understand so much where you're at with trying to raise investment dollars. And I think I even mentioned to you, in this area of the country, they're going to more likely invest in an oil well that might be a dry hole,
Right.
or farm ground or cattle,
Mhm.
than they are a movie, because movies to them are just this, what is that?
Foreign.
Hollywood.
Yeah, Hollywood.
You know? But when you, just like what you're trying to do, you're putting out a really quality project, and I can tell, because I know you and I know your experience,
Thank
you have assembled an amazing team. And the budgets you're talking about that are in the ultra low budget and not what you'd think a Hollywood type movie that people think of,
Mhm.
are going to have a better chance for return on the investor's dollar.
Absolutely. It's always a different thing because, you know, there's different genres of films, and it's not a horror film where it's kind of like, you know, slasher, where it's kind of like, why are we making this? There's so many of them. Nor is it a frivolous romantic comedy. It's a film with substance, and that's definitely needed. You know, it's like, not only does it, you know, it's great to do it in a community like this, but then it also infuses the greater filmmaking and entertainment and artistic worlds with something that's of quality, which is, you know, I think of use, and definitely, I think, well received usually. Like, even, you know, it's like when they see that you're trying to do something that's good, it's,
Well, I personally, when I pick a project, I like something that I feel is something of a greater purpose.
Absolutely.
Because you know enough and I know enough about the film industry that those horror slasher films sell well.
Absolutely.
They do. I mean, you know, they're sadly low budget. They can sadly be pathetic, but if they have plenty of, you know, blood and gore spilling around, you know, those usually do sell, and they sell well even in the international markets.
Exactly.
Not something I want to
yeah.
go work on every day, you know,
And they're not
or
the
for
stories
2 years
that
of
give
my
back.
life.
They're not the stories that give
Exactly.
back. They're not the stories that, unless they're brilliant pieces of filmmaking in and of themselves, they're not the kind of stories that continue to give back to the audience over the years, where you say, you know what, wow, that was making a statement about where we were as a society and how we dealt with those issues at that time. I mean, when you have a piece of, you know, art or a film or music that becomes timeless, then it becomes not only referential to history, but in the moment it can have an impact that can go beyond what people think it can, if it's done well. That's what I'm hoping to try and do. We'll see.
Well, and certainly the topic of autism
Oh,
is very
yeah,
in the
huge.
forefront right now. Who Jenny McCarthy, is that her name, that
Jenny
was
McCarthy is one.
dating Jim Carrey for a while?
Yes.
And she really came out with her book on autism.
Absolutely.
And the statistics on autism that are coming out are almost frightening. Is this environmentally induced? But I don't think your story gets into that as much as the personal
Absolutely.
little heart of it.
It's a really, I'm learning a lot all the time. Before I picked up this book, my exposure was just what I saw in the media. After I started to work on this project, after, you know, even the talent I started to bring on board, like my producer, we started to meet families, and we started to meet parents, and we met, you know, great kids who were on the autistic spectrum, and, you know, it started to kind of open my eyes up. And, you know, it's amazing how, you know, just the other day I ran into someone and they were talking about having 2 kids on the spectrum, and then I met another person and they had 2 kids on the spectrum, and then I met another person and they had 2 kids on the spectrum, and their stories were just so amazing, you know. But the one thread, I think, that I met with all of these parents was that they had such an immense amount of love for their children and respect for how their children were, you know, developing in society, and they were working to make sure that their kid had every advantage possible to be amazing. And I think in this book, with the access to, you know, music being something that sometimes opens up a world to, you know, some children on the autistic spectrum, it's just worth exploring. It's really worth exploring.
Natalie, you bet. I mean, this just sounds like such an interesting project, and we're going to go to a little bit of a break, but we want you to stay because Natalie's going to have a lot more to talk about the arts and creativity. So this is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show. And then we break off. And if you can remember to cue me, Paul, too. I'm watching my
I turned that off. Right. Should I save this?
If you want, and then we can just go on to the new one. I'd like to get into some of what we talked about, creativity with the arts. And you have